Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show. Hope you are having a great day, and thanks for joining us on SuperTalk Radio, or some are watching on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast, or you're watching it on SuperTalk TV. SuperTalk TV. This is the show that celebrates the people who are making coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi, for that matter, such a great place to live, work, and play. But it's Friday on the Ricky Mathews Show, and this is the day I get to welcome my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, where we're going to talk Saints today. So anyway, how you doing, Jeff?
Doing great, Ricky. Good to see you, buddy.
It's good to see you too. Listen, I was telling you before the show started that I come to my computer every morning to do this show, and I take it for granted. So I had to restart my computer, and then Jeff had to restart his computer. So it looks like we have all the technical issues solved. But I think there must have been some kind of an update on Skype this morning. So we're rolling now. Hey, Jeff. It is so. I tell you what, I look forward to getting my Saints newsletter every morning, and I want to really encourage our listeners to sign up for the NOLA.com Times-Picayune newsletter, the Saints newsletter. It'll be there in your inbox before you wake up in most cases. And what it is it just gives you a sense of this incredible team that's focused on the Saints, covering it from every angle. And this has been such a fun offseason, such a lead up to the season. You got a confident head coach. He's made some really bold moves. You've got, in one case with Lou Headley, you got one of the most interesting men in the NFL, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But it is really an interesting lead up to the season starting, isn't it, my friend?
Really is. Hey, that newsletter, we're over 30,000 now subscribers. It's growing fast. So, yeah, it's definitely a great way to get your Saints news. And I agree with you, man. There's more interest. You know, our traffic, I've talked to you about that before, our traffic on our website on Saints coverage is way up. And I think that just reflects the interest level with this team compared to past years. And I think a lot of it has to do with Derek Carr, you know, the quarterback, getting someone of his caliber in there. But also, I think it's more than that. There's just a positive vibe around the team. You can sense it talking to the players, a lot of the veteran players that have been around, some players that have been with other teams and certainly have perspective, feel it as well. So we'll see how it plays out once the season starts. But I agree with you. It's been, you know, my colleague Rod Walker wrote a really good column the other day saying that they've had about as perfect an offseason as you can have. They're pretty healthy. Sounds like they're going to have most of their players available in week one, and that's always a good thing. And this team's due a little luck, right?
They really are, because we've had, even though I remember this time last year, we were talking about a new fitness and training coach and how that was going to make a difference and whatever. And then they have again one of the most, you know, it's almost set a record in terms of number of injuries or games missed. And so there's a lot to talk about. I think they've done a great job with practice squad. We'll come back to that in just a second. But, you know, it occurred to me that maybe a good place for you and me to start was on the move that the coach made around the kicker and the punter. In that story where it quoted Dennis Allen, he talked about Groupie's confidence level. But in a way, he's almost like expressing his own confidence level. We got a head coach that wants to make his own moves and has been pretty confident throughout the entire training camp and leading up to the start of the season. But it's good to see Dennis Allen in that mode. I think that kind of reflects where the Saints as an organization is at this moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's very confident right now. I've talked to you about this before. You know, look, everyone's confident this time of year, but there's something different about the way Dennis Allen talks, even in private conversations. I mean, he's excited. I think he's very comfortable in his own skin now. He feels like this is his team. I think getting Derek Carr, you can't underestimate how big that is. That's kind of lifted all the boats in the building. And everyone has a little bit more confidence going into the year because that position is so important. And not only that, but he has displayed a level of confidence during his short time here that's kind of gotten everyone enthused. And I believe that the players believe it. They feel like that was kind of the missing link. And, you know, they've got a good enough team around him. And it just feels like things are coming together. I don't know how else to describe it. Now, they've got to put it together on the football field. I'm a little concerned just because they they haven't had still everyone all together yet on offense. They're still trying to feel their way. So I guess I would be cautious in saying that, I think the start of the year, it's going to take them a little while, but it's a long season. People need to just have some patience. I think they'll get there, but I do think there's going to be some growing pains along the way.
I don't think you've ever used the word confidence, ever, not one time, without saying caution at some point in a paragraph that follows, because that's just who you are. But what's interesting? I think you have a unique perspective, because after having written the incredibly well-written and well-read book, Peyton Breeze, and this whole notion of having to have a PhD to play in this offense and so on, you have a unique perspective about how Derek Carr is a fit in this complicated offense. The need to be able to read the defense, the need to be able to make those checkoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But, you've repeatedly said this. You think that Carr is a good fit for this offense. But you have a unique perspective about it, because you literally wrote the book about it.
Yeah, look, I had a long talk the other day with Pete Carmichael. I've got a column coming out, little shameless self-promotion there, a column coming out on Pete Carmichael. And look, it's a big year for him. It was not a great first season for him without Sean Payton as the play caller. And a lot of people turn their, pitchforks and torches on Pete Carmichael. And I think a lot of it had to do with the quarterback. We tend to, we all look for a scapegoat, right? And Pete Carmichael became the scapegoat. And he's the first to admit he's got to do better. And the offenses look dramatically better, Ricky, this preseason. And I think a lot of it has to do with the confidence level that the staff has in Carr to get them in the right play at the line of scrimmage, to make the right read. The guy just has a confidence level, and I think Taysom Hill used the word presence. I think that's a really good word that makes everyone else confident. And Drew Brees had that to the ultimate extent. And I think Carr's brought that same presence to the building, and everyone else feels it. I think it's going to take him a little while to get on the same page with Mike Thomas. That's one thing we haven't seen so far, is that connection. He's got it with Juwan Johnson and Chris Olave. It's not there yet with Mike Thomas. I think it will get there, and it's getting better, but it's not there yet. So I think those are the things I'm talking about. It's just going to take him a little while, I think, to really get humming. But that's okay. It happens all the time in the NFL, where teams progress as the season goes on.
And an offensive line that we still have some question marks about. I mean, that's definitely true. I think one of the benefits of Drew Brees was that, as you've helped us understand, as you wrote about in your book, his ability to very quickly process the defense, his ability to read the defense and do his checkoffs and all the other things that he has to do in microseconds, his ability to get the ball off quickly. That was when Saints had offensive line challenges. Drew Brees knew he was still going to pass a lot, but he got rid of the ball quick. He just really, really processed, got rid of the ball, and didn't give them a chance to sack him. Derek Carr's got a lot of that in him too, doesn't he?
Yeah, very much, and he knows where to go with the ball. I mean, 10 years in the NFL. That's what it'll do to you. He's seen every defense that they can throw at him, and he makes those quick reads, and the ball comes out quick. Now, the one thing I would say, I wrote about this the other day. I'm a little concerned, and not majorly, but I am a little wondering when the running game is going to get going. They haven't done that much, but it might just be that they're focusing on the passing attack. They know they need to get that synchronized, and they haven't really tried to run it a whole lot in the preseason, but their numbers are way down. And in the past, I did some research. When they've had poor rushing totals in the preseason, it's kind of carried over to the regular season. They haven't run the ball well. So I'm a little worried about that. But the first-team offense has played so little in this preseason. They played, I think, one series out of 31 that, it's hard to get a read to truly evaluate the running game when Alvin Kamara and that first-team offensive line's not out there.
Well, you've watched them in practice, though. You've watched them go against a really good defense in practice. So outside of the actual preseason games themselves, what did you observe in practice?
Well, it wasn't great. They didn't run the ball that well. So that's got me a little concerned. I mean, Bobby Hebert is the first one that kind of put this on my radar. We were watching practice one day last week at the indoor facility, and he brought that up. And I thought, you know what, you're right. I haven't really seen them break off any big runs. They haven't really been grinding out, 7 to 12-yard gains. And, so it's something I think to watch. But, I mean, you have to have confidence. Alvin Kamara is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I know he's not going to be there the first 3 weeks, but I do think that's something to watch. You can't be one-dimensional in this league. But the Saints' passing attack looks so good, we tend to forget about the running game. And you're not going to have Kamara those first 3 weeks. And you're going to play some pretty good defenses, in Tennessee and Carolina. So something to think about while we're talking about all this optimism. There is some things that I think are reasons to be a little concerned.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that can help a really good run offense is a great passing attack because then they can't load it up with their free safeties and the other stuff that they're going to be doing. But, hey, when we come back on the other side, you got a column coming up about Pete Carmichael. Even you wondered, was there a lack of creativity? Might they get another signal caller? All this stuff swirling. But the point about having a quarterback who can process the plays probably is one of the single most important things that we did. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get on the other side and some of these other moves they made as well when we continue our conversation with Jeff Duncan. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I have my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. He's on the NFL Hall of Fame Selection Committee, one of the top Saints reporters really in history. He's been there so long and has so much insight and so many connections, and it's great to have the opportunity to visit with Jeff here on SuperTalk every Friday. Jeff, just one more quick thing about Carmichael. You speculated, might we get a play caller, but I think it's an interesting point that you made before we went to break that what was limiting Carmichael's creativity was the fact that he didn't have quarterbacks that could process the situation and make him look good. And that's a very limiting factor in this offense, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think even more than maybe a better way to put it would be that didn't want to do that. Like Sean Payton used to always describe Drew Brees as like the analogy he would use is when you get a new car and it's got the dashboard with all the bells and whistles on it. He said most people don't use all the buttons, right? Well, Drew Brees was a guy that wanted to know how everything worked and then actually used all those buttons. And he said, that's the way he liked to operate. Well, certain quarterbacks don't like that. And I think Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston preferred a more streamlined approach to the offense. So they didn't have those bells and whistles, and it limited them in some of the things they can do. Carr's more like Breeze. I don't know if he's to that level, but he's definitely more like Breeze. You're going to see more motion. You're going to see more play action, just more misdirection. And we've seen it in the preseason, the pocket moving. It's a lot of the stuff we see in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan's offense, Sean McVay moving the pocket around, trying to keep the defense from just loading up on you. We'll see how well it works, but so far it's looked great. I have to say, he looks very comfortable throwing on the run, and they're trying to get these playmakers they have in space with the ball moving, because the way defenses play now, Ricky, almost everybody plays two deep safeties. They don't let you get behind them. Very rarely do you have shot time to get the ball down the field. So to get these big chunk plays, which the Saints haven't had very many of, you have to hit playmakers on the run and let them get yards after the catch. And they've got some guys that can do that now. Obviously, Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. Juwan Johnson's terrific after the catch for a tight end. Rashid Shaheed's got brilliant speed. And Olave, that's not a strength of his, but they're trying to find ways to get him the ball in space as well.
And Taysom Hill.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's where you're going to see a little tweaking of the offense. I think you're going to see more crossing routes, jet sweeps, things getting guys moving in space with the ball.
Well, speaking of Dennis Allen, his personality, his changing mindset, this is his team. People said he was too conservative. He hasn't been conservative on a lot of these moves he's made to get to the 53-man roster, and never has that been more evident than through the kicking game. You weren't terribly surprised, but it still is a bold move on his part, isn't it?
Yeah, I was a little surprised at the punter, Lou Hedley. I didn't think he'd out-punted Blake Gillikin. Neither one of them has had a great camp. They've been just average. And I'm not sure, just to be honest with you, that Lou Hedley is the guy full long term. But right now he's the guy for sure. But I think they'll keep looking at punters in this league to see if they can upgrade that position. But it definitely was a surprise to me that they went in that direction. Obviously, we've talked on the program about the kicking competition. That was as close as it could get all year long. They went with the young guy. in Blake Grupe, who kicked extremely well. And they ended up getting a draft pick from Denver for Will Lutz. And we know Sean Payton's in Denver. He's got experience with Lutz. Mike Westhoff is the assistant special teams coach out there. He coached Lutz here. So it all made sense for Lutz as well. But it is a roll of the dice because Blake Grupe, as good as he's looked, he's never done it in an NFL game. But I do like the makeup of the young kid. He's got a very level head. He's got a lot of confidence. And I think the players in the building have a lot of confidence in him as well.
How does a dude that short and that small kick the ball as hard as he does?
He generates, it's like golf. He has a tremendous backswing. You watch his leg, slow it down if you have a chance to watch a replay or sometime. I mean, his leg, his foot actually sometimes will touch the back of his back on his backswing. And usually when you have that, you have inaccuracy because you have a lot of margin for error there in the swing through. But he has managed, I guess he's just been doing it so long that way. He generates incredible leg strength using that backswing. And he's 5'7", about 150. He's a wisp of a human being. And it's why he keeps getting, confused with his sons. I know Darren Rizzi yesterday said that when he first showed up, that some of the coaches thought he was the son of one of the coaches. He keeps getting misidentified as like a fan or a child because he's so young looking.
Like the one game where security stopped him and he went on to win the game with the kick. So right. Cool. And Heatley, you got a guy from Australia, 30 years old as a rookie, had another year of eligibility, owned a tattoo parlor in Bali at one point, has literally, except for his face, his body is covered in tattoos. What an interesting dude.
Oh my God. We talked to him yesterday for about 20 minutes about his backstory, and he's fascinating. He's got to be one of the most fascinating people in the NFL. I think everyone's going to try and do the Lou Hedley story. I mean, he's got The Rock down in Miami, sending him messages on social media, congratulating him for making the team. And he does add an element because he's an Australian punter. He's got the ability to use all these different kinds of punts with backspins, side spins. And I think Darren Rizzi talked about how excited he is to be able to use that toolbox. It's a little different than Blake Gillikin, who's more of a traditional punter. But again, he hasn't done it in a game yet, so we're going to see. But you're right about this. It's reflective, I think, of the new Dennis Allen, a little more bold, not as conservative, and rolling the dice and going with these young guys.
Then he let Roby go, and so he made some moves in the defensive backfield that he's confident about. He let Jalen Smith go. When he let Jalen go, incidentally, it actually trended on Twitter, got him back onto the practice squad. Just a lot of interesting moves.
Yeah, the Bradley Roby one surprised me a little bit. I just felt like at that position, Bradley Roby's a good player, and you just don't let good players at that position get out of the building, but that shows how confident they are in Alante Taylor. And it goes back to the old Greg Williams line. When Greg Williams was the defensive coordinator, his goal every year was just to get the best 11 players on the field at the same time, the best 11 defenders. And that's certainly what I think they believe with Alante Taylor. They feel like he's a better overall athlete. And I do think that's another position where there's going to be some growing pains early on. He's going to get beat. He's going to have some struggles early on, but they're thinking, who's going to make us better in December in the playoffs? Are we going to be better there with Taylor or Roby? And I think they feel like in the end, they'll be better with Taylor there, but it might take a little while to get there. So just have some patience. If he starts getting beat early on, don't panic.
You also see our rookie defensive linemen emerging, and the way their more veteran teammates talk about them, especially Breezy. It's hopefully they can keep that up.
Yeah, he looked totally different player the last 10 days. All of a sudden the light bulbs come on. You have to have patience with these young players sometimes, especially young defensive linemen. Sometimes it takes them a while. And early on in camp, I had some concerns about Breezy, and the light bulbs come on. You're starting to see him make an impact inside. And look, he's not going to do that all the time against the starters in this league, but just to have the ability to do it, I think is going to add an element that they were missing on the interior of their defensive line last year. It's why they drafted him. They just want someone that can have an impact, penetrate into the backfield, wreak some havoc inside that they didn't have a year ago.
And I mean, I think it was Malcolm Roach that said about him that he's never seen someone that size turn so rapidly, and that he's not asking him to do anything other than what you just said.
Yeah,
be disruptive.
Yeah, and when you throw him in the mix inside, all of a sudden that starts opening things up for the ends outside, and it gives the defensive line coach, Todd Grantham, and defense coordinator, which is basically Joe Woods, it gives them a lot of options now. They could even play Brzee outside. I mean, he's built a lot like a defensive end. He's 6'5". You don't see a lot of 6'5" interior defensive linemen. So that's unusual, and that's the one thing that I have seen that there's a little bit of a drawback for him is he loses leverage sometimes. He's a tall, rangy guy, and it's all about pad level in there. So when he stays low, he's very effective. But when he gets upright, a lot of times you'll see him get blown out of there by some of the better offensive linemen he's going against. So that's something that's going to be a work in progress, but certainly promising to see him have that impact as a pass rusher.
Well, listen, one of the things that was for sure, depending on who you talk to, some people wondered if Jimmy Graham would make the team. But Jimmy Graham made the team. So what a great story that is.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a great game the other night. That's really solidified it. Look, I think he was a lock to make the team until that incident out in California. And then once that happened.
Yeah, so what's the word on that?
Well, I mean, he's fine. I mean, he's
Yeah. So, Kyle, just checking in with you real quick. How are we doing on time? Okay, good. We had a mute issue there for a second. So anyway, Jeff, listen, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. We've got another week to go before the first game, but it's going to be fun to lead up to it, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think people are really excited. I think that opener in about a week and a half is going to be off the charts here. And so it's going to be fun to get into the real action and start to see the real Saints show up here in about a week.
And we will stay tuned and check in with Jeff every Friday. It's been a pleasure, my friend. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too, Ricky. Thanks, buddy.
You bet. Hey, when we come back, we're gonna continue the conversation. We'll see you after this break.